Moving and settling in another country is a big change in life. In time, one has to deal with the issue of identity. A new book tells the stories of how certain African immigrants found a new identity in the United States and how, by telling their stories, became catalysts of change, both in the United States and their countries of origin. Want to tell us more? I'm joined in studio by Gbenga Ogungimi, author of Borderless Voice.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to our
Vincent.
studio. So first, you have a very interesting title. Tell us about the title and what really inspired you to put these stories together.
The title, Borderless Voice, the power of telling your story and defining your identity, is this overarching message that everyone has a story to tell. And the moment we take on the agency of telling our story rather than having someone tell your story for you, you have come to a point where you become transcendent. And then you overcome any external obstacles that may prevent you from expressing your borderless voice.
Mm-hmm. Now, everybody has a story for sure. What makes some of the stories you put together unique?
Well, the first story in the book started with 19-year-old Gbenga Ogungimi. She's the very first Miss World winner that happens to be a black woman from Nigeria. When that happened, she changed the definition of beauty around the world and gave people of color, particularly black people, this new voice of identity. Further along the book, you will read about stories of people who come from various communities. You'll see it happen in fashion, happen in technology. One of the stories in the book is about how an impact investor without a business plan, without resources, just by telling our own story, built a multi-million investment fund. So it's all about the power of telling the story, and Gbenga Ogungimi opened that doorway, that floodgates.
And now you're talking about also how this new identity and the experience has become has influenced how they have operated not only here, but some of the things they've done back in their countries of origin. What are some of the examples you have?
Well, several of the examples in the book, particularly those who come from the minority communities in the United States that might be classified as minority or immigrant. The vast majority of Africans will fit that demographic. If you come with that, you have double negative. And so because of that, there's a struggle to articulate and speak in your own true voice. So one of the stories in the book, including my own personal coming to America story, happened in Atlanta airport. And it was when I had a defining moment that I don't have to identify by the minority or the immigrant label. I chose to identify as an international entrepreneur. And that was my turning point of my own career. And it's the same message that you'll see resonates across the book.
Yeah. Now, you've been here for a few years, and there are some who have been here for even much longer. How would you describe the experience of an immigrant, say, 20 years ago, perhaps longer, and what immigrants might be going through today as we speak?
Well, it's a global world, and the boundaries that we know are now really shrinking. So it's an opportunity for everyone to find their own voice. So we now have an opportunity of media, of social media, and that gives us enormous responsibility of leadership. Also how we serve the community and change making in those communities. So with this new environment that we have now, it's imperative that we tell our story, but in the community, there's a struggle with identity. Do I identify as black? Do I identify as African? Do I identify as African and American? So these are the ageless conversation that those 20 years ago had and is still having now, and we are still having now. So my proposition and value proposition in the book is you have to tell your story by yourselves. And whether they be cultural, geographical, financial, the ultimate barrier to overcome is your own self-perception. Mm-hmm. Once you do that, you can tell a whole new story.
And we know that people come from all sorts of backgrounds, different countries. Do you sometimes encounter people who seem to be unwilling to identify with their countries of origin and want to acquire a totally new identity, but others want to straddle the two? They want to be Americans and also Africans at the same time.
Well, again, I think the responsibility and the agency starts with you. And the moment in which you define the identity, that best resonates sometimes with not even who you are but who you are becoming, because identity is fluid, it changes, and if you are becoming this new identity, the book helps you to articulate that message and have that message with still retaining a healthy sense of authenticity and say, this is really who I am, or this is who I am becoming. When I shared my story, like, I decided to become an international entrepreneur, and because of that, that changes my reality in the United States. So that would be my message. You have to take on the agency of telling your own story and defining your identity.
All right. Hope you'll include my personal story in your next book.
Yes, let's do that.
Thank you very much, Gbenga, for
Vincent,
joining us today and sharing the accounts of the Borderless Voice, the book that you put together. Gbenga Ogungimi is the author of Borderless Voice.